Morning, everyone. I think for our folks who have video on this, pretty graphic representation of what the federal surge has done to Minnesota. One aspect of it, we know the things you see on TV. We understand about with Alex and Renee's killing, with the other shootings, with all the things that are happening. We've covered, and I'm grateful to all of you, covered extensively the disruptions to our schools, to our hospitals. I think one that's on here, and we were just saying some of the heart and soul of our communities is our food and hospitality and restaurant industry. You're going to hear from Patty, Saeed, you'll hear from Commissioner Verelik, from Deed, what the impact of it is. Well, the impact is pretty clear right here. This place should be hopping. This place should be full. We should have the 4 employees that would be working this kitchen be working here. They're not, which the trickle-down effect of that is, how do they make rent? How do they pay for food? How do they do the things they need to do? And so I think it's been clear over the last nearly 3 months now that we are long past this being anything about immigration. Again, I'm grateful for the great reporting that's been done. Of all the people that have been detained by ICE, 14% fall into that worst of the worst. Those are the people that we know about. We're seeing continuous stories about the conditions at the Whipple building and others, the horrific stories of Liam and the number of children that have spiked up that are in detention, all in the name of making our communities safer, none of which is true. We're here today to highlight the economic impact, and this is going to take some time as it shakes out, and it will be an ongoing, rolling hit that is happening to these businesses. And Saeed is just mentioning, we just want to get back to do what we do best, normal, cook food for our neighbors, make some money, and go on about our lives. The incredible disruption that has been caused by what can only be described as a federal retribution campaign, and I say that because I'm not searching for words. That's exactly what the President of the United States called it, a retribution. Neighbors, we've seen the terror in the streets, we've seen the violence in our streets, we're seeing the economic destruction of this, and then we're seeing day in and day out the impact across state government. At the very time we're putting people at risk, we're making it more difficult for people to get health care. We're making it more difficult to have safety in where they take their children for child care. So we're continuing to make the case that Minnesota has stood up for their neighbors, that Minnesota has asked that this surge of folks leave. I spoke with Tom Homan yesterday. I spoke with Susie Wiles, the President Chief of Staff, this morning. We're very much in a trust but verify mode, but it's my expectation, and we will hear more from them, I think, in the next day or so, that we are talking days, not weeks and months of this occupation, and it's an expectation that we will continue to get cooperation on joint investigations of the crimes that were committed or potentially committed against Minnesotans, and then a backing off of the unprecedented. What happened when they said this retribution campaign, the very unqualified cabinet secretaries all took that as free rein to come to Minnesota and bring retribution to us. So if you were the Department of Transportation, you did it. If you were the Ag Department, you did it. If you were DHS, you did it. If you're Dr. Oz, you did it. If you're O'Neill, you did it. All of them came to get in the news, and all of them came in all aspects of whether it was holding money, whether it was trying to file charges against people, or things that might not seem like they would be that impactful. Data request. Millions and millions of pages of data request, which is fine by me. We do it in Minnesota, but they don't even have any people working at these agencies, so they request the data and they don't go anywhere. The people who are the attorneys that should actually be prosecuting on ICE cases, the lead prosecutor quit yesterday. Fraud is a long forgotten thing for everybody except me. And people in Minnesota who know we need to prosecute it and do what's right. The federal government lost all their prosecutors. The federal government sent us no one who's an expert in fraud prevention or fraud discovery or fraud prosecution. They sent untrained people on the streets to push people down or to try and follow teachers home. Those things are not making anybody better. It's certainly not making America great again. And here in Minnesota, we're here today to make the case that this needs to end, but more importantly, Minnesota's going to do what we've seen our neighbors do on the streets. Stand up for each other, try and make things better for each other. I'm going to turn this over to Commissioner Verilek here to talk a little bit about this, but I would preview for all of you as we get ready to move into the legislative session. We're working with our partners. We're listening to people like Patty who are telling us this is what we need, and we, I think here later this week, or we'll try and get something out, put a package of relief together, especially focused around businesses. Very much we had to do this during COVID. COVID was something that we couldn't control. This is an entirely man-made and avoidable catastrophe that's fell on these businesses. But I think it's still important for us to put something together to make sure that they get back on their feet. These are resilient folks. These are entrepreneurs. They know how to make things work. But what has been brought upon them without a little bit of help is going to be very difficult. And the sad part about this is if, again, totally avoidable, totally should not have happened and had nothing to do with immigration, ends up putting businesses out of work or out of business, that is totally unacceptable. So we're going to continue to push on this. We're continuing to gather the data. Grateful for the partners in the trade groups, the hospitality groups, and all of those that are helping us put that together. And then turning it to DEED, which was highly successful, highly targeted during COVID, about some of that relief. So I'll turn it over to DEED Commissioner Verilek.